Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Pranita, second year postgraduate. My topic for presentation is molecular characterization of influenza virus at a tertiary care hospital, Hyderabad. Influenza is a global public health problem causing considerable mortality and morbidity. Influenza belongs to family Orthomyxoviridae. It is of four antigenic types, that is A, B, C, and D, of which A and B are human pathogens. Influenza A is subtype based on surface proteins, that is hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, into 18 H subtypes and 11 N subtypes, whereas influenza B is subtyped into Victoria and Yamagata lineages. Antigenic variation is a unique property of influenza viruses. Antigenic shift and drift result in outbreaks, epidemics, and pandemics. Antigenic drift occurs in both A and B, but antigenic shift occurs only in A. It is important to know the particular subtype responsible for the outbreak or epidemic so that it can be included in the annual vaccine in that particular period. My aim is to determine the proportion of subtypes of influenza virus by real-time RT-PCR, and my objectives are to study the proportion of influenza subtypes during the period of December 2018 to March 2020, to study the proportion of influenza virus in different age groups, to study the seasonal trends of influenza virus and its case fatality rate. Coming to materials and methods, a total of 940 nasopharyngeal swabs were collected, of which 829 were from severe acute respiratory tract infection cases and 111 were from influenza-like illness cases. The study period was December 2018 to March 2020. These samples were tested by real-time RT-PCR as per standard operative guidelines of NIV Pune. Primers targeted were M gene of influenza A, HA of swine H1 and AH3, NS of influenza B, HA of influenza B lineages, that is Victoria and Yamagata. All samples were initially processed for detection of influenza A and B by multiplex PCR. Influenza A positive samples were further processed for subtypes, that is H1N1 pandemic 9 and H3N2. Influenza B positives were further processed for lineages, that is Victoria and Yamagata. These are the cycling conditions, and all clinical samples should exhibit internal control reaction curve threshold at or before 35 cycles. Positive control should produce positive results between 20 to 30 cycles. Coming to my results, among 829 SARI cases, 74, that is 8.9%, and 111 ILI cases, 9, that is 8.1%, were positive. This is the table showing the age-wise distribution of influenza virus in this study. The most affected age group was 36 to 45 years, that is 13.27%, followed by 0 to 15 years, that is 12.1%, and the least cases detected were in the age group 66 to 75, that is 4%, and there were no cases detected above the age 75 years. Among the total positives, females were 44, that is 53.01%, and males were 39, that is 46.98%. Of total 940 samples, 83, that is 8.8%, were positive for influenza virus, of which H1N1 pandemic 9 were 43, that is 51.8%, H3N2 were 16, that is 19.27%, untypable A were 4, that is 4.8%, Victoria were 13, that is 15.6%, Yamagata was 1, that is 1.2%, and untypable B were 6, that is 7.2%. Coming to seasonal trends of influenza virus, in this study it is observed that there were two peaks, that one in September 2019 and the other in February 2020. In 2020 February, a total of 26 girls from an orphanage were tested, out of which 8, that is 30.7%, were positive for H3N2. There were total 7 deaths among the detected cases. All were of influenza A H1N1 pandemic 9 positive. And the maximum number of deaths were in the age group 36 to 45, that is 3 deaths. The case fatality rate was 16.27%. Coming to discussion, age-wise proportion of influenza virus. In this study, influenza is more prevalent among 36 to 45 years age group. This correlates with the study by Dipankar Biswas et al., where the most affected age group was above 40 years, and R.D. Chevan et al., where the most affected age group was 30 to 40 years. Gender-wise proportion of influenza virus. In the present study, positives among females are more compared to males, which correlates with the study by Mousumi Datta and et al. Proportion of influenza A and B. In the present study, influenza A detected were 75.9% among all the positives, where in other studies uh, it ranges from 11.4% to 96.27%. Of the total detected influenza A positives, H1N1 detected were 68.25%, while in other study it ranges from 41.4% to 86%. And H3N2 detected were 25.3%, while in other study it ranges from 7.2% to 58.11%. And influenza B detected were 24.09%, while in other study it is ranging from 3.6% to 30%. Seasonal trends of influenza virus. In this study, influenza peak was observed in September 2019 and February 2020. These correlates with the study by Ramesh Kiruba et al., where the peak was in August and September, and the study by Sania Reza and et al., where the peak was in January and February. Conclusion. This study shows the significance of H3N2 and type B influenza, suggesting that these two should also be included in routine screening along with H1N1. As influenza viruses are constantly evolving, composition of vaccines need to be updated based on the subtypes prevalent during that period. These are my references. Thank you.